Hey folks, how's it going? This is Iron Seagull here, back with another My Sims 4 wishlist video, where I talk about what sorts of ideas I'd like to see in The Sims 4 and how I think they should be implemented into the game. So, seasons. They're a very popular feature in The Sims, and for good reason. One argument in favor of having seasons in The Sims is because they really help convey a passage of time beyond the typical day and night cycle that we're used to seeing. Seasons really makes it feel like as if actual months and years are going by in The Sims, but what if I told you there's another feature that does the same thing? A feature that's not really talked about very often at all by the Sims community. That brings me to Lunar Cycles. While they are more subtle compared to seasons, the lunar cycle does also help convey a passage of time, but more in relation to months than years, since the whole lunar cycle takes just under a month to complete. I'd really like to see lunar cycles return in The Sims 4, with some changes and innovations compared to how they were done in The Sims 3. I saw lots of Simmers not liking how full moons start zombie outbreaks and cast creepy lighting throughout the world. I completely agree with them. While I do like some supernaturals mixed in with my gameplay, I found those aspects to be invasive and got annoying very fast, so I don't want to see those brought back. If werewolves come back, then they can still be forced to turn at the full moon, and maybe different phases of the moon can have varying effects on spells for witches, but other than that, I'd like them to focus more on affecting our Sims' emotions. While there seems to be conflicting information as to whether the lunar cycle affects human and animal behavior in real life, I think it would make gameplay more interesting if they did affect human Sims as well as their pets. However, so the moon phases don't end up being invasive like in The Sims 3, the moodlets they'd give won't be powerful enough to force a Sim into a certain emotion on their own unless they're in the fine emotion with no moodlets at all. Dogs would be tempted to howl outside of full moons, cats would tend to be more erratic and skittish, and human Sims would be more likely to be flirty. A new moon could influence the inspired emotion, and maybe a different phase could influence the focused emotion. I don't think every moon phase needs to affect Sims. It might be overkill to do that, but I think it'd be fun to have some of them affect Sims to change things up once in a while. One other thing they can do with lunar cycles that they didn't have in The Sims 3 is introduce blue moons. I did a bit of research out of curiosity to find out what blue moons really are, since I've only heard them used as a metaphor for something that happens very rarely. Turns out there's two different interpretations of what blue moons are. One is that a blue moon happens during a month that has two full moons, with the blue moon being the second out of those full moons. The other kind is the third full moon in a season, which only happens every 2.7 years. Maybe the blue moon could be the one to push the focused emotion, or it could just look really pretty. Either way, I don't mind. So now we come to the part where I say how I think The Sims 4 should introduce this feature. I was surprised when I found out that in The Sims 3, lunar cycles were restricted only to people who owned the Supernatural expansion pack, as I would have figured a feature of that size would have been something added to the core game through a free update. I still think this is a feature everyone should have, so this time around, I think it really should be in a game update. They could be added at pretty much any time of year. We don't need to really wait for a special occasion, I don't think, but maybe they could be added around the time of another supernatural game pack like witches, and the moon phases, like I said, could have varying effects on the potency of their spells. And like in The Sims 3, there would be a little icon near your Sim in the UI that tells you what the current moon phase is, and when you hover over it, you can see how many days there are left until the next full moon. Of course, if you don't want lunar cycles, you can turn them off in the options menu, or set the moon to always be one single phase of your choosing. You could also choose how many days each moon phase lasts. One last thing I want to mention is the idea of solar eclipses. Yeah, they could maybe do those. It could be like a very, very rare thing that you'd see, and you could be notified of it through either watching the news channel, or when the eclipse is about to happen, you'd be notified the day before, and then also right when it happens. And that wraps up my thoughts on how Lunar Cycles should be brought back in The Sims 4. This My Sims 4 wishlist video was pretty interesting to do, as I did a bit of research and educated myself a bit more about how Lunar Cycles work, which is something I had studied since the 3rd grade. I'll leave some links in the video description if you're curious yourself, so you can also see a little bit of the research that I did when I was doing this video. But let me know in the comment section below what you'd like to see with Lunar Cycles. I think there could be some potential to make them more realistic and interesting, while being less annoying than they were in The Sims 3 Supernatural. And like I said at the beginning of this video, they can help convey a passage of time in a similar way to seasons, and I think Lunar Cycles are much easier to do than seasons in The Sims, so it'd actually be nice to see these come back sooner rather than later. And that's pretty much all I have to say for now, so be sure to stick around for more fun content on The Sims, Sonic the Hedgehog, and more. So I'll talk to you all later, and have a great day! Thanks for watching!